Hey guys, what's going on? RossDunne, and I am clearly planning on cashing out of this game Bill Hicks style. I don't even get hangovers anymore, man. But to say that I'm an alcoholic would be putting it mildly. So we're continuing on from what we were talking about over the weekend, where there's this ongoing discussion about censorship and the UN's tacit approval of it. Well, it's come to light there over the course of the last few days that the extended definition of harassment, according to Saudi Arabia, should also fall under criticism of Sharia law. Now, what this means basically is that Saudi Arabia has no real interest in supporting or paying any sort of real credence to Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian and their presence at the UN. What it really wants to do is push its own agenda. Its own agenda, which states that if you criticize or insult Sharia law or the practices which are common amongst Islamic cultures, that you're committing a form of bigotry and hatred. You see, this is exactly what I said and what many of our contemporaries said was going to happen. And it is happening. It's hard. It feels harder to defend free speech on the internet right now. It feels very hard to do it because you have a specific group of people who, when you try and defend free speech to them, they don't think that you're defending the principles that stand behind it. They think that you're just defending harassment. And unfortunately, one of the consequences of having a society in which the individual liberty afforded to people covers the expression of their thoughts and words, negative things are going to happen. If you actually have these conversations in an open and free form, what you tend to have occur is the most reasonable situation and the most reasonable solution to these problems, and the most reasonable point tends to bubble up to the surface and the chaff fades away. I'd say that one of the greater achievements of Western society as a whole is that by giving our citizens and everyone within it and the ideas that our citizens have a chance to compete with one another, the best choice tends to bubble up to the surface. The more intellectually sound ideas and principles tend to come to the top, and that's really how we form our society. It's a form of ideological Darwinism occurs in Western society, and there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't hurt. It usually presents us with the best possible options. So when you start trying to limit people's ability to express themselves, you in turn limit the free flow of information and the free flow of ideas. I'm not a libertarian. I'm definitely not. And I'm partly in favor of there being consequences for the things that you say. I think libel law can be done very well, and it can be done very poorly. I've seen it done quite well. Libel law is helpful when an individual's ability to support themselves financially, an ability to provide a livelihood for them and their own, is based upon them having a standing character. If you may take it upon yourself to then go and assassinate that person's character for profit or simply for amusement, then I think you might need to be held accountable for that. I think what it's possible is you can then say, okay, well, my ability to succeed in life I'm selling a product and the product is me. That's realistically actually the best way to put it. And you've damaged the product that is me, and you have to be held accountable for it. Now, when that goes to law and goes to the courtroom, it's up to a jury of people's peers, and it's up to the legal system, which, whilst not necessarily a perfect establishment, it's up to that system to attempt to find the right course of action. I've seen people's lives destroyed by the freedom of speech, but I've also seen people's lives made a lot better for it too. It's a hard subject. When you start getting down into the nitty-gritty details of it, there's a lot to it. But I think I want to maintain that air of freedom for most people. I think the internet in particular should be left unregulated. And again, I'm not somebody who supports a perfect libertarian worldview, but I think the internet is a blank slate and a blank sheet upon which people can build whatever they want. For example, it should realistically be left up to a community on the internet to decide what the content is, what kind of content is satisfactory for that community. If your community is one which is really quite gnarly, and that's the word I'm going to use, and disgusting, and so long as it's not breaking real world laws which damage people or hurt people, like child pornography, etc., I don't think that there should be real consequences. There should be real world consequences for those actions, because I've seen communities on one hand produce absolute shitheads who have gone out of their way to make people's lives unpleasant, whilst on the other side, in the same community, done wonderful work. And the work that they would have done would have been hindered by the suppression of their free expression. You see, what people like Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn are arguing for at the UN is the suppression of negative elements. They're probably not against freedom of expression so long as it results in a net benefit to people. But they're against freedom of expression if it results in a net negative against people. Unfortunately, that's just the rules. That's just the way it works. Because your perception of a net positive for your group can be skewed to be a net negative for another. The perfect example of this is Saudi Arabia's pushing of the Sharia agenda. In the West, we consider it a net positive if women are entitled and free to make choices. Choices about their own bodies, choices about their own dress, choices about their own personal morality. In places like Saudi Arabia, that is considered a net negative. So there you go. When you start fighting free speech, you're fighting against yourself. I'm RossDunne. Like, comment, subscribe.